I recently came across this over-under 12 gauge. I'm not a collector of shotguns, but this one struck my fancy. And here you can see why. This 12 gauge is the one that came in recently, and this is a Luftwaffe drilling that I've had for a number of years. As a matter of fact, I did a video on the Luftwaffe drilling about 2 years ago, and this gun, of course, reminds me of the Luftwaffe drilling. The word drilling comes from having 3 barrels, eins, zwei, drei, and this is an over-under 12 gauge, so a completely different configuration. But what was unique about it is the Luftwaffe. First of all, they're both made by Sauer Sons, the Luftwaffe Eagle, very, very clear, and the Luftwaffe Eagle right here. Now, if you watch my video before about the drilling, you can see Luftwaffe Eagle right here and the Luftwaffe Eagle right here. Now, if I'm going to compare the two guns, because there were about 2,500 of these made, and these do come up from time to time on auction. We have sold a couple of them recently for like $30,000, and if you have the whole setup, which looks like this, and that's where you have the case and all the accessories, they've gone on auctions for over $40,000. But on this over-under, I have seen one on Rock Island Auction, but it was made by Merkel, and I have seen other over-unders, but probably only 1 or 2. So this might be the third one I've ever seen. Therefore, the numbers produced of this particular kind is much, much more rare. Now, who would this have gone to? Well, clearly, it was given to an officer or somebody in the Luftwaffe. The circumstances, I believe, were surrounding Hermann Goering. Now, in the previous video, I talk about the fact that Hermann Goering liked to reward his Luftwaffe aces with prizes, guns, presentation pieces, engraved Krieghoff Lugers, certainly Luftwaffe drillings, and we have evidence of that, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But he would take people out to his hunting lodge and take them hunting with him when they were on furlough. And that's how he rewards some of his loyal pilots. So I believe that that was the purpose of this gun, that it really was never issued to the military, but in fact went to Hermann Goering, who gave it to somebody as a gift. I can't prove any of that. It's all conjecture, but it certainly is a beautiful shotgun. Certainly went to the Luftwaffe, a Luftwaffe officer, I believe. Goering gave it out, and I'll give you more information about that. But let's finish up the gun itself. The difference is that I see the over-under is just a little bit longer. Also, the configuration here is a little bit different. This is a little larger, and they both have case hardening. This, by the way, has a tiny crack in it right there. I believe there's one on the other side. On the other side, maybe that's just a scratch, but there's maybe a little crack there. If I take it apart, it's fairly simple. First of all, this comes off. Let's look at the bottom of both. Again, these are both Sauer Sons, and you can see they come apart. They're very similar. On the top, they have the same lever here. And then also, this has a rear sight because of the rifle function. This does not have a rear sight, but back here you can see this is safety, up and back. This is safety, up and back, but it also raises and lowers the rear sight. Watch the rear sight. Cameraman gets the rear sight. So it's ready to shoot. Once you put the rear sight up, it's ready to shoot, whereas on the over-under, you don't have that function. So these are some of the differences. We pop this off. We're going to learn a little bit more about this shotgun. It is all matching. There's the interior. There is a serial number inside there. And then when we push the lever over, it pops right off. Comes apart. Serial number is also on the frame. But here's some of the markings inside. Okay, inside you can see the logo, 12 gauge or 70 millimeter. There's an N-proof mark, which is a firing proof. And then 240, which stands for February of 1940. So this was made in early 1940 and I believe gifted to somebody soon thereafter. And again, I assume a pilot for some accomplishment or just one of his cronies that went hunting with him, and he gifted him this shotgun. Now let's compare it to the date on the drilling. So here we have the rifle caliber, you have 12 gauge marking here, but then you have the Eagle and firing proof just like the other one, except this one is 1041. So 2,500 of these were made in 1941. This over-under was made in 1940. So it could have been a precursor to the Luftwaffe drilling. And in order to talk about the purpose of the drilling, let me pull up a video that I did previously to give you a summary of the 3 reasons they made the drilling and presumably this very rare over-under shotgun. Now, there were 3 theories that I have proposed in the past, and honestly, I couldn't figure out which one was more true than the other, but the first is it's a survival weapon. So number 1, survival weapon, they were ordered for when, mostly in North Africa, if a pilot was shot down, he would have a shotgun for small game, and then a rifle round for larger game, and so this would help with survival. Now, the problem with that is why would you take a very expensive, state-of-the-art crafted drilling that's actually engraved, case hardened, you got engraving, you've got case hardening, you've got the Luftwaffe Eagle, you've got the Luftwaffe Eagle, you've got this beautiful bluing. The mechanics are just phenomenal. I'll show you that in a little bit. Why would they spend that kind of money for a survival weapon when most people, when they're shot down, they use a parachute? So when you're shot down, you're not going to grab your drilling case and jump out the door of the plane. So you would actually have to land the plane and then use this because nobody was going to pick you up for a matter of days. So it just seemed like a waste of money to get something this elaborate just as a survival weapon. Explanation number 2 was they used it during downtimes in order to shoot skeet. And the skeet shooting was so they could learn how to lead the skeet, and that helped them with their skills in shooting down enemy aircraft. That may be. But again, this is a pretty fancy weapon to use just to practice your skeet shooting. And the third, the one that I mostly embraced, is Hermann Goering was very famous for his hunting trip, his elaborate hunting trips for gifts to all his friends, his family, to the Luftwaffe aces and his officers. He regularly would have people come to one of his hunting cabins, and he would give them gifts such as one of these. So I kind of thought it was what I called a boondoggle. Outside of the United States, a boondoggle is like when you're on a board of a nonprofit, but you have your board meetings in Bahamas so that you can spend a bunch of money and have a vacation at the same time. My thought was he spent a bunch of money on these beautiful, well-crafted weapons and then gave them out to Luftwaffe aces and family members and friends of his who were hunting buddies. So let's take a look at this magazine, and I'll show you where we have the definitive answer. So one of our viewers watched my previous video, and this is September of 1979, Guns and Ammo. So that's a long time ago, before many of you were even born. Not so much for me, but for a lot of you. And in it is an article about the Luftwaffe drilling. Here's a nice color picture of a very nice Luftwaffe drilling. Here's actually a picture of them. This is a drilling being handed up. It looks like a fighter plane, Messerschmitt, and he's handing it up. There's also additional pictures here, shows what was in it, and it's just an article. There's Rommel, we'll see what his connection is, and then it shows the Luftwaffe Flying Eagle on the stock and also on the barrel. We'll show you that on the actual drilling itself. So let me just read you a couple excerpts from this article. So just like me, the author of this article said, the assumption of this writer, along with many others, was that these Luftwaffe drillings were ordered by Hermann Goering to be used as gifts for favorite hunting buddies, distinguished visitors, Knight's Cross winners, Luftwaffe aces, who were guests at his hunting lodges. The fact that these were standard issue equipment to be stored within an aircraft seemed highly remote, if not a downright expensive waste of money. So what he decides to do is he decides to contact General Adolf Galland. Now, General Galland was a Luftwaffe ace. He was decorated, he led a squadron, and he flew planes throughout the war. Also, after the war was over, he was actually very friendly with the Western press. I believe he wrote a book about his Luftwaffe experiences. He was interviewed on television and traveled around the world talking about his service in the Luftwaffe. So he was very apt to talk very openly about his service. And a lot of former German soldiers and Luftwaffe pilots, of course, preferred not to talk about their military service. But they wrote a letter to General Galland. The following quote is from him answering my letter. In 1942 and 1943, the M30 drilling was standard equipment for our fighter jets, the Messerschmitt 109 and the Stuka bombers, as we operated in North Africa. The purpose was to shoot animals for survival. General Galland went on to describe the Luftwaffe Shot Gun. We also used it for trap shooting during our obligatory exercise training to sharpen our eyes and reflexes of the fighter pilots. Also, he mentioned that as a Luftwaffe ace, he and several of his squadron buddies would be invited by Goering on hunting trips at his exclusive lodge, and many of them were gifted these Luftwaffe drillings. So the answer to the question, which is it? The answer is, it was all three. They actually were used for survival weapons, and they were used for skeet or trap shooting, and they were also given away as gifts. So here I literally just stumbled upon a real piece of history, precursor of the drilling, a lot more rare. My guess would be that they made less than 50. I've only seen 2 or 3 in my life. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And for this one, I think I'm going to hang on to it for a while.